Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass. And John, Republicans are having their struggles on the Hill. There's no question about that. And Trump, depending on your perspective, creates as many problems for Republicans as he does for Democrats. But the good news for Republicans and Trump supporters is that in this binary political world in which we live in America, you got the Democrats on the other side. And what they're offering is, according to Matt Iglesias over at Vox.com, a soon-to-be octogenarian socialist is their 2020 Democrat frontrunner for President of the United States, Bernie Sanders. That's the Matt Iglesias piece this morning. And the DCCC, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, has a new bumper sticker where they're ripping from Saturday Night Live when it used to be funny back in the 80s. John Lovett says, Mike Dukakis, remember? I can't believe I'm losing to this guy. Democrats 2018, their slogan. I mean, have you seen the other guys?
You know, I saw that at the beginning.
We got that.
I saw that in the package you offered 5 in the morning, and I thought it was just a joke. That's a serious slogan?
Not an onion. Not an onion story.
Well, what does that tell us about the Democrats? That they don't know what they're about? They're
idea-free and they're identity-obsessed, and this is why you're getting think pieces like one over the weekend from McKay Coppins in The Atlantic describing how the left lost its mind. So there's a lot of self-introspection. Well, that's redundant. A lot of introspection going on among the intellectuals of the left as they're looking at what the Democrats on the Hill and the Democrat power structure are offering up, both in terms of messaging and potential presidential candidates. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Rich Lowry. He's the editor of National Review, nationalreview.com, is also a Fox News contributor. Rich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Happy belated 4th.
Yes, same to you. And so, this reflective week where we celebrate America's independence, where do we find ourselves, the political landscape, as we're talking about what Trump and the congressional Republicans are doing and the internal challenges they face, as well as clearly the internal struggles facing the Democrats?
Well, I think Trump's position is kind of fair to middling. You know, it's not as catastrophic as you see in the headlines every day and hear on some of the cable TV networks, but it's not great. But he's held the Republican base, and as long as he does that, he's going to have some political potency and, real shot at re-election in 2020 to get way ahead of us. And the Democrats are lurching left, especially on economics, but on everything else. And I think kind of Bernie Sanders, one, is probably right that he's the front runner at this early election for the Democrats. And two, he has a better idea of where the party should be than a lot of more so-called mainstream Democrats, because I think there is room for the party to go further left on economics. I don't think there's a lot of downside in this environment to be in favor of, say, free tuition for college kids. But Sanders has also been open to more flexibility on the cultural issues. There was this episode a month or two ago where he endorsed a pro-life mayoral candidate in Omaha, Nebraska, and a lot of national Democrats were outraged by that. But I think that's what Democrats need to realize if they're going to recover, is they need to give on some cultural issues, even if it's symbolic, even if it's rhetorical. But that's what the party has a real hard time acknowledging.
But one problem for Bernie Sanders, though, as their potential nominee, is that if he and his wife are in federal prison for bank fraud, then it'll be difficult for him to run unless he wants to do it LaRouche style.
Yeah, point taken.
But also he's got that Big Rock Candy Mountain economic platform where, like the Pete Seeger song, I don't know if that really holds up over the long term, but I guess it does appeal to the leftist base, which brings the question, are intellectuals on the left in the same position now as were intellectuals on the right just a few years ago, with a party without someplace to stand.
Yeah, well, as a practical matter, after every major election loss, you have this kind of soul-searching on the part of the party that was defeated. But usually what brings the party back is not repositioning so much as the other party screwing up. So, after when George W. Bush won a re-election, there was all this agonizing, what can Democrats do to appeal to so-called values voters? They don't really figure that out. Instead, Katrina happened, and the Iraq War went south, and then there was a financial crisis, and Barack Obama won an election probably any Democrat would have won. So that's typically how it works. But there is some interesting thinking going on, especially on the issue of immigration, where you've had a number of center-left intellectuals saying the Democratic Party has gone too far on immigration. It's too absolutist. It's too extreme. It's too out of touch where middle America is. Even Fareed Zakaria, whose whole show and whole shtick is based on appealing to the global elite. Even he wrote the other day that Democrats need to acknowledge the economic and, amazingly, the cultural costs of immigration. So I think that's a very interesting opening there. Whether the party will actually moderate on that, I don't know, but it shows how Trump's election has at least moved the Overton window a little bit on that issue.
Well, right, and it's also providing kind of a bright dividing line between the two camps, right? Even if you kind of disagree on the margins, whether it's style or substance on a particular issue, when you have Trump taking one position on the side of police, on the side of border enforcement, on the side of families who've been victimized by persons here illegally that everybody says shouldn't be here, but are here nonetheless, victimizing Americans. And the response this week is the Naturalize Now campaign. Sanctuary cities, including our fair city, Chicago, pledging to make 1 million immigrants U.S. citizens this year. I don't know if those persons are here legally or illegally, or if the left even makes the difference. But you've got 21 of the kind of, epicenters of liberalism around the country that are continuing full speed in this direction, while 80% of the public seems to be on the side of Trump when it comes to legislation like Kate's Law.
Yeah, Kate's Law, there was a House vote on it the other day. This is a law mostly symbolic. It would strengthen the penalties for illegal reentry if you're caught reentering 3 or more times. So this isn't a radical measure. Only 24 House Democrats voted for it. Only 24. And that just shows where the party is at the moment on immigration. And there was an interesting Morning Consult poll yesterday on the so-called travel ban. 60% of people approved it, and if I'm not mistaken, something like 30% of Democrats. So again, it shows on that issue, Trump's position has a lot of appeal.
Well, and just now the other piece of that, since I mentioned police, this assassination of this New York police officer the other day, and now the Facebook rant of the killer who was killed by police after he pulled a gun on them when they confronted him, and this in the context of the D.C. press corps talking about Trump's tweets and parody videos potentially inciting violence, but they are completely, blind to their own exposure when it comes to covering without critique, if not celebrating, the rhetoric of Black Lives Matter and other hateful rhetoric directed at police.
Yeah, this is another issue where, Bill Clinton in the 1990s would have understood you need to be with the police. A Bill Clinton running last year would have understood that you should slap down Colin Kaepernick and just say, look, you're a famous person. You're paid a lot of money for playing a game. The least you can do for this country that's done so much for you is stand up for 2 minutes during the national anthem. But no one would say that except for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They had to back down and apologize. So, again, the Democrats are just wildly out of touch on these kind of issues.
The prospect for Obamacare replaced coming out of the Senate in the near term and moving this along to get to tax reform?
I'd say it's probably less than 50%.
Really?
There's still a deal there that's possible, but Susan Collins seems a pretty hard no. Rand Paul, everyone in the Senate leadership's kind of assumed all along he was going to end up being a no, so then he can't lose anyone else. And Dean Heller seems pretty dug in as a no. And the problem here is, Republicans voted a year ago, I think all of them except for two maybe, just for a repeal-only bill that didn't even have any replace. But the problem is a lot of these moderates on the issue of Medicaid from expansion states, they weren't serious about that vote. They were disingenuous about that vote. They only voted for that bill because they knew it would be vetoed by President Obama. And now that they're firing with real bullets, there's a whole bunch of cold feet. So I wouldn't be shocked if this thing doesn't get out of the Senate. I wouldn't say it's dead, but I would say the odds are against it.
All right. He is Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, nationalreview.com, also a Fox News contributor. Rich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.